Alright, I'm back with another Destiny 2 video, and I've been waiting to make this one for a while. I was kind of waiting to see how the epilogue panned out before I made kind of a final judgment about the season. We do have reset tomorrow, but I do not believe that there is going to be anything happening then except maybe some sort of like brief conversation with Saint or Mithrax or someone, and I think we're going to get an exotic ship out of it. But besides that, the season is pretty much over, and I thought it was time to kind of talk about kind of an overall review of how I thought this season went. The answer, pretty well. I thought it was a really good season overall. I have some caveats to that, and I think in my final judgment, I might like Season of the Chosen a little bit better, but generally speaking, I thought they did a lot of really great things this season, especially in regard to storytelling, especially in regard to loot. Activities, I think, is where this season suffered the most, but I will get into that here. In terms of the loot, I thought they did a fantastic job giving a ton of options that felt like they were worth chasing this season. I loved all of the Splicer loot, pretty much like for the most part. I was able to chase kind of pretty much every god roll I wanted. This was a much better farming system, I think, than we had in Chosen with the hammer. The hammer was a terrible farming system, and like I got lucky, I got enough stuff that I wanted, but here it felt like you could do, I guess, less grinding and also kind of more focused grinding in order to get the things that you wanted, and I really enjoyed kind of going for very specific rolls on a lot of these weapons. All of the new Splicer guns feel great. I love Chroma Rush and Ignition Code. And there's even the weapons they brought back, Stochastic Variable, I think is the best weapon of the season, if you ask me, like a Feeding Frenzy, Dragonfly or Feeding Frenzy, Multi-Kill Clip or something. That gun just feels amazing and is one of my favorite SMGs now. I thought they did a great job with Vault of Glass loot. A lot of those, they did leave out some, and Vex Mythic Glass does suck, and it's probably going to get buffed probably in the TWAB this week. They're going to explain how that's happening. And yet, I thought the return of Fatebringer and Vision of Confluence and Hesens and like all these other ones did a pretty solid job of making them meta relevant in a lot of ways. The time lost aspect is kind of an interesting way to go about hard mode loot. I think there's some changes that need to be made to that system, like being linked to challenges and stuff. They've already made some changes, like how you can double loot both clears every week. But I think time lost weapons are generally a success, and they did a good job with those. So pretty much every activity that could give you new weapons, whether it's world loot or event loot or raid loot, did a good job with that. This was also a season where there was a lot of options to get high stat armor. Hard mode VOG now gives you high stat armor for different stats every week. You could get high stat armor from focusing engrams for the seasonal stuff. You could get high stat armor from farming the, what are they called? Not overrides, the other ones. I forget what they're called. The ones with no enemies where you just kind of jump through everything. I should probably remember the name of that because I need to talk about that in a few minutes here. But I thought they did a fantastic job with all of that. This is combined with what I thought they did very well in the story. The idea of kind of finally giving us a Mithrax storyline after all this time and after so many requests to get him involved in the story. I thought this was a perfect way to bring him into the story and to kind of continue this idea of being allies with our former enemies. This has been the theme of the last 3 seasons. We've done this with Crow, who was formerly our worst enemy in the form of Uldren. Granted, he's an entirely different person now, but that still counts. And then last season, we had this big armistice that we did with Keitel, which I really enjoyed that. And then we had a great storyline here that involved a lot of characters. Mithrax, Saint, Osiris, Lakshmi, Ikora, like everybody was involved this season. And I thought they did a really good job kind of utilizing all these different characters rather than it just being like Mithrax talking to us the whole season. Like a year or two ago, that's probably what the season would have been. They did not really ever give more than 1 or 2 characters in the season voice lines, but that has changed this year, and I think storytelling has dramatically improved because of that. We got a ton of different ways of storytelling. We have in-mission narration from all these different characters. We have the new Elixir Quarter, which is totally different than anything we've seen before, and then, well, not a new zone, but a repurposed zone in order for us to be able to kind of like explore Fallen Settlement. And then there was some like kind of quasi-interactive cutscenes there. And then we did end with an actual cutscene which was pretty cool, seeing all these heroes of the Destiny universe come together to save the day, and ultimately the kind of lesson of this season, like learning to, I guess, love your enemies and also reflect on your own actions, which is something we saw through Saints, where he thought he was being a hero to his people and the Fallen were monsters, but like then he was the monster in their stories. And I think Saints development is something that everyone is highlighting in particular as a thing that was done particularly well. Lakshmi coming back and then being a villain was an interesting choice. I think it worked. I wish that her kind of ultimate finale and her death was handled a little differently. And yet I thought she made kind of a good quasi-villain for the season. And I do find it kind of funny that this entire season is mostly about killing off the faction so no one can ask for faction rallies anymore. In terms of things I didn't like as much, the activities. So I'm going to exclude Vault of Glass here. I thought they did a great job bringing back Vault of Glass and making it relevant and challenging enough for the current state of the game. Technically, it's not like seasonal content because it's in the game permanently, but I'm going to count it because it arrived this season, so it gets credit for that. Overrides are okay. I'm just kind of tired of killing things for moats and then dunking moats. Like, we always do that with Gambit. We did that with Arrivals, the public event in Arrivals, and I think the public event in Arrivals was better and more fun than this one, actually. This being this like very small kind of match-made arena space, something just wasn't working here. Like it was too easy. 6 players for this activity, like it felt like you were always scrambling to even find enemies to kill almost. And I don't want to go back to the Season of the Worthy, this public event can fail easily and make your whole run worthless thing. Like, I don't think you could fail this. It was like impossible to fail this. And then we have kind of this middling sequence, which is just pointless, where you go through a short little obstacle course, but only one person has to make it through, which makes it pointless for 5 people. And like, it was, interesting the first couple times, but then like 30 times, 40 times, like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and be lazy and wait for someone else to do it. The bosses were interesting. I liked how they had different mechanics, and yet again, they felt extremely easy. Like, 2 supers or even 1 super, depending on debuffs, could take the entire immunity health chunk off a boss. So it didn't really feel like you were doing anything really of consequence. It just seemed like 6 people, either 6 people was too much for overrides, or they needed a lot more enemies and they needed them to be tougher or have tougher modifiers or something. Because like it was just a little too mindless for me. And then we go to the other activity, which I still cannot remember the name of, but I'm talking about, the Expunge. Is that right? Expunge. Okay. The obstacle courses that you run through. Again, this was something that I found was like, it was interesting. It was unique, and it was something that Destiny has not really done in a while, and it reminded me of like kind of the jumping segments in dungeon areas, but without as much consequence, because you still couldn't really fail these unless you're going for like a timed thing. But it was an interesting change of pace. It's just that like once you did them a couple times, like even though they did end up being farmable later with like the Taken versions, it didn't seem like something I wanted to run on repeat. The rewards were pretty good, but like it just, I don't know. There's not enough action for me there, and I'm not really like a big speedrunner person, so I don't really care about finding like the sub 5-minute route to this thing, or like it was okay, and like I get that it was different and a change of pace, but I didn't love it. I liked the Korea fight itself. I thought it being a combination of like the other expunge missions we've already done was kind of lame, but the actual fight itself was very good. It made me wish that could have been like a strike in some way, and that she would have made for a good strike boss. It was a little weird kind of how easily you could just solo Kyria, this like kind of mythical Vex Taken figure, but I thought they did that well. One storytelling aspect I did not really love was the fact that the final mission was just another expunge mission. Like that's it, or not expunge, just another override mission in the last city district. That's all it was, and just another boss that we haven't seen before. And like, I get they wanted to create like another farmable zone, and now you can go back and rerun that. And yet, like, in terms of like the grand story finale, it really felt like that should have been the Korea fights. I get that they wanted to kind of like play possum and be like, everything's fine, and then like Lakshmi opens a portal and dies and things invade the city. How they handled Osiris was very weird. Like, Osiris was being very shady all season, hence why I started Osiris Watch, and I have my grand theory that I did not invent, but like that Osiris is secretly Savathun in disguise. We got to the end of the season. Osiris is named as helping the Vex get into the city. He does not join the battle to help anyone, and then he flees the last city. And even then, everyone is like, he's Osiris. Like, he's fine. Like, we'll just have him come back and we'll clear his name. It's like, really? Are we still thinking that, Ikora? Like, it seems a little past the bounds of plausibility that no one suspects Osiris of anything. And like, I understand that we, the player, have access to like information that other characters don't. Like, we have these lore entries about Savathun in a human skin roaming around the tower. We have at least 2 of those. And so, like, they don't know that, I guess. But, like, Osiris is being super shady. And then he, like, just outright committed a war crime in the city. And they're all like, what are you going to do? So that aspect I did not really love. But I would say overall, like, the positive storytelling elements overwhelm this. And the loot made up for maybe how underwhelming the activities themselves were. I know Battlegrounds get some amount of flack from Chosen, but I think Battlegrounds are one of the best seasonal activities they've ever done. I thought that many enemies with 3 people, it felt like a really kind of perfect, thing to introduce to the game that was like almost a strike, but not really, but still kind of engaging. The only problem with Battlegrounds was the farming system. When the farming system was terrible and like trying to get hammer charges and like, that whole system was totally backwards, and they fixed that for Splicer, but that was kind of the main problem there. And I really liked all the Keitel stuff in Chosen, and obviously the Presage mission came there and was great. So I think Chosen might just edge it out a little bit for me, but I think Splicer was still a really, really strong season, and they keep making very kind of significant strides forward in terms of storytelling. So overall, like this, I do think this is one of the better seasons if we're kind of adding everything up. I would place Overrides kind of low on the list of seasonal activities I liked, so that's something that kind of knocks it down a few notches, but again, so much else was good about the season that I'm kind of willing to overlook that. I truly have no idea what we're heading into with Season 15 here. I have not read any leaks about Season 15 at all. My grand theories remain that I think this will be a Dreaming City focused season. I think about possibly trying to lift the curse and Mara coming back for that. Maybe that won't happen until the Witch Queen. I don't know, but just kind of the trajectory of where things are going, seeing that we have all these unstoppable mods, which are good against Hive and Taken, which are both in the Dreaming City. I think that we might be headed toward that direction. We're not going to do another Vex season. We just kind of focus on the Fallen too, not as enemies, but as friends. And then the season before we had Cabal. So I do think it's probably time for Hive and or Taken. So that's where I think we're going. We will get some piece of news this week. We are going to be within a week of season launch. I don't know if Bungie is going to do their traditional kind of season teaser stuff in the next week, or if they're saving everything for August 24th, the day the season launches, and their big Witch Queen presentation. We know this Thursday there will be a weapons TWAB, so that is going to be... We know a lot about Season 15 in terms of like what's changing, like light buffs and nerfs and exotic armor, and now we're going to do weapons. It's like we know a lot of like substantive changes, but we don't actually know what is happening in Season 15 at all. It's kind of a mystery, so I expect we might start to get some teasers this week, but we may see a bunch of stuff kind of saved for the reveal or just having it go live because they don't want to spoil anything, and I guess we'll see. But so those are my thoughts. I think that great job with loot, great job with most storytelling. Activities were unique, but needed maybe a little bit of work overall in the end, minus Vault of Glass, which I thought was a really great example of bringing content out of the vault, probably the best example they've done so far. Certainly more interesting than the Cosmodrome or Strikes, and I hope to see more stuff like that. So those are my thoughts, and let me know if you agree or disagree. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.